Welcome to your definition. Awareness is the highest wisdom. Let's follow the 3 R's. Reduce, recycle as much as you can. Recycle as much as you can. Reuse, 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 reuse.
Hi friends, how are you all? The topic for the day is about one of the longest ruling dynasties ever in the Indian subcontinent and in the South Asia. Yes, your guess is right. It's going to be the history of Cholas. So Cholas were early Cholas and there were late Cholas, and lot information is available about the late Cholas, especially starting from Vijayalan to Rajendra. And the Chola territories stretched from the modern day Sri Lanka, Maldives, and in the north up to Andhra Pradesh. But Rajendra had uh, explored till the Ganges River and has invaded Pala dynasty and did that successfully. Uh, so the area was huge. There were invasions of Southeast Asia as well, especially the Srivijaya Empire, and the Chola footprint is in everywhere in the Southeast Asia, every part of Southeast Asia, including the Angkor Wat temple place, Cambodia, the Khmers, and in the Philippines, in Vietnam, Laos, Malaysia, they have left their footprint everywhere. The powerful monarchy of Cholas is just not about the military conquest and the administration or the cultural assimilation, but also the propaganda of the art and architecture. And that is one of the most important thing that has to be mentioned when we speak about Cholas. The influence of art and architecture in the entire Asia is something which is to be noted. Most of the Indian empire were land based, but when they were land based, the Chola Empire was unique with its expanded naval base. Sometimes around 10th century, Cholas dominated the entire southern part of India, and they were more stronger than the compatriots Cheras and the Pandyas. It is their naval power that made them the rulers of Maldives, Sri Lanka, and the Malaysian Indonesian archipelago. The Cholas were powerful kings, and they followed Saivate religion, and they were not intolerant at all. At least when the northern part of India has been uh, conquered by the Muhammads and Sultans, and the Cholas have been around for many centuries, and their battles with Pandya and Cheras have been recorded in various Sangam poetries. So the Chola Empire has to talk. If we are talking about the great Chola Empire, we'll have to talk about Karikalan. Karikalan or Karigala, who was the Chola king ruler about the second century. He moved his capital from Kaveripatnam to Urayu, and he built the famous Kallanai, which is an engineering wonder even today. So Nedunkilli succeeded Karigalan, and their capital town was set to fire by the sea pirates. And when the Pallavas' glory started declining, the Cholas rose again. The Calabra invasion of the 3rd century put a temporary obstacle to the expanding Chola Empire. It was in doldrums during the Calabra invasion and the Calabra ruling period. This Calabra invasion is said to be one of the darkest ages of Tamil kingdoms. It was Vijayalaya around 1850 who brought the Chola Empire back to the light. That is, he was the man of revival. So after Vijayalaya came Aditya I. who defeated the Pallava king Aparjita and the Kongu ruler uh, Parantaka Veeranarayana. After Aditya won, it was Parantaka I who conquered the Chola kingdom. During his kingdom, the Cholas expanded uh, almost all of the east, including places of the modern day Kalasthi and the temple, which is also part of the Cholas' contribution. But two of the greatest Chola kings, Rajaraja and Rajendra, were hard to be forgotten. Born to Sundara Solan as Arulmozhivarman, Rajaraja was one of the supreme leaders of his times. He was renowned for his administration abilities. The Saiva Tirumurai compilations were also happened during Rajaraja's period. He restructured the land and he created a lot of Valanadis, means fertile portions of the country. Rajaraja was the king who brought in all the small territories which were under some independent kings under the Chola Empire into one umbrella. As a king or emperor, he was exercising a closer control over different parts of the empire. The local government was strengthened and a system of audit and control was in place. Village assemblies were accountable. At the same time, they had the autonomy too. To promote trade, he sent his first uh, trading missionary to China. Lot has been discussed about his sister Kundavai assisting him in administration and also in the management of temples. He had some able administrators as his ministers and he had some intelligent people around him to advise. Devaram were compiled with the help of Nambi under Nambi. So the Saivate related literature was prospering during his period. Chola architecture is an exceptional Dravidian architecture and he Rajaraja built the great Bragadisura temple during his reign, and it is a World Heritage Site now, and it's a living example. The temple Vimanam, the tower, was so high that it is one of the tallest in the world. The kumbam or the apex structure of the temple is carved out of a single rock. It's a monolithic rock and it weighed about 80 ton. How could have they taken that to the top of the temple tower? Amazing. They managed to get the granite while there was nothing closer source to the temple. The king was featuring in the coins that were let out during his period, and the coins say a lot of history of the king, the nobleman himself. The inscriptions found around South India tells a lot of tale about these great kings, especially Rajaraja from the inscription in Tamil that is recovered from Mulbagal, now which is part of Karnataka, was giving his accomplishments. And there were a lot of Meikitis or the real accomplishments have been recorded as inscriptions. The word Rajaraja means king of kings, means emperor, and he his real name was Arulmozhivarman, and Arulmozhivarman was truly king of kings, and he captured about 15 countries around the some period. He initially devastated the Chera Empire, then annexed the northern part of Sri Lanka, the then Ceylon. He conquered the western Chalukyas as well. To stop the fighting for the throne, the Cholas have decided to annex another king. That is, the successor will also be part of king with equal statuses. Like that, Madhuranga Cholan, Rajendra Cholan was made the king even during the time of Rajaraja. He then invaded Maldives and annexed it to his kingdom. Then he defeated the Pandyas as well. Who could forget the constructed temple at Tanjavur, the famous Bragadisura temple? It is still a masterpiece that many would keep wondering how this was built. And then came Rajendra Chola or the Madhuranga Cholan became a king in 1014 AD and His kingdom was one of the golden era of Chola Empire, and he extended it to the banks of River Ganga in North India, and it got spread in the West and Southeast Asia as well. And the conquest covered entire Southeast Asia and South Asia. And this man also had excellent relationship with the Khmer kingdom of Cambodia. Once he defeated Mahipala, the Pala king of uh, Goda in the Bengal area, Bengal, Bihar of modern days. He was given the title Gangai Kondan, which means the conqueror of Ganga. Born to Rajarajan and Tirupuvana Madiviyar, uh, the young Madurandakan was brought up by his aunt Kundavai and his great grandmother Sembian Mahadevi, and he was kind of a champion in terms of handling all the arms and ammunitions. He was a great horse rider too, and he was a master of all the 64 arts that were required to be part of a king. His skill set kept expanding as he was aging, though he was recognized as a warrior even at the tender age of 12. His part in expansion of the Konishwaram temple of Trikonamale in present-day Sri Lanka is unforgettable. Similar to his father, Rajendra Cholan also practiced polygamy. We get to know a lot about the Tirolangadu plates, about the history of Rajendra Chola. Temple, Adipurishwara temple in Chengalpat, near to modern day Chennai, uh, gives some inscription about the birthday donations of this king. Rather, I would call him as emperor. India's Navy's training ship was named after this great emperor as T.S. Rajendra. So his portrait has been dedicated to Mazgaon docks in Maharashtra state. The later part of his life was not as great, and he died in the northern part of Tamil Nadu in a very little known manner. This is the irony of life. Life is a great leveler. Even you could conquer many parts of the world, you could hold as many as 50 countries, but you only get what you deserve. Yes, life is a great leveler. His son Rajendra Chola. Rajendra Maduranjana Cholan was one of the greatest kings of India, and he ruled for almost 32 years. Rajendra defeated the Pala king, Dharmapala, in the banks of river Ganga, and he built a city called Gangai Cholapuram, which turned into his capital. Who would forget the invasion of Kedra or the Kadaram, which is part of present Malaysia, but earlier it was the part of the Srivijaya Empire, and which earned him the nickname Kadaram Kondan. Rajendra Chola and his clan had control over the entire Southeast Asia, including South Asia, including Sri Lanka and Maldives and other parts of Southeast Asia, including Malaysia and Indonesian archipelago. And some of their descendants have invaded parts of modern Philippines as well. The greatest contribution of Cholas is not just this invasion, but the architecture and art and the things they have left everywhere. In fact, the even after the conquering the uh, Srivijaya Empire, the country was given back to them, and not much of the countries were taken away. And Rajendra Chola nearly had 50 countries in his control. Troubled times for Chola began after Rajendra, again when the Rajadiraja II or the Veera Rajendra were in the place. That is, Rajaraja II and Rajendra II were there. Then came the period of Kulotunga. Although Kulotunga was a Saive, he has supported the Buddhist shrines at Nagapattinam. Vikrama Chola and other weak Cholas in the Chola Empire came to an end. It slowly got disappeared. The territories got shrunk. The possible highlights of the Chola Empire were their elephant battalion and the naval base highly trained naval forces to help them extend their territories into Sri Lanka and Maldives and other parts of Southeast Asia, be it the Grand Anicut or the Kallanai or other architectural marvels. The Chola age was a golden age, and it has got some of the lively architectures as well as it has contributed much to the historical facts. These are all recorded, be it coins or be it artifacts, other artifacts, which give the impression of how the life was during the period of either the Rajaraja Chola or the Rajendran Chola. Carvings, the art, the metal stone images, and other portrait images are more than architectural marvels, and some of them are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, especially the Gangaikonda Cholapuram is a must visit. Whatever it is said about the Bragadisura temple or the Airavadeshwara temple, it is less. So the Cholas have slowly ascended the throne in the 13th century or the 14th century. They have left with all their arts and the architectural marvels and the artifacts, they are still part of the existing Tamil culture. I hope you had a good time listening to the brief history of Cholas. How much ever it is said about them, it is only less. More and more is always sought, and the kind of evidences and artifacts that are there to be studied, and the brass or copper inscriptions that have been found in different parts of Tamil Nadu and other parts of Sri Lanka and even Southeast Asia, there is much more about them and the way they have led their life and the way they have taken their people along with them. So, hope you like this account. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Take good care. Bye bye.